Hello, my name is Jeff Mendenhall, and I'm an assistant professor of speech at Vincennes University. I'd like to take this opportunity first to thank you in advance for viewing my teaching demonstration. It means a lot that you would take the extra time to do this. Before you view the teaching demonstration, however, I wanted to give a brief word of explanation, specifically for my use of eyeglasses. The politically correct term is that I am visually impaired and incredibly light sensitive. The polarized sunglasses allow me to lecture without the problem of headaches that are often caused by fluorescent lights. If you guys require any further clarification, please feel free to bring it up during my interview. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy the demonstration. Tonight, we're going to try to develop an understanding of what communication is by breaking down the individual components of the communication process. Hopefully, by breaking down these individual components and seeing how they work together, we can develop a holistic understanding of what communication actually is. So, let's get started. What you'll see up here is Stephen Lucas's model of the communication process. Now, before we get started on breaking down the individual communication model parts, what you need to understand is that communication is not a linear process. What does this mean? Well, what we're saying is that communication is not something that I do to you and then you do to me. Communication is more of a collective experience. It's something that we do together to create. And so as we look at these individual parts, realize that they're going to work all together for a finished product. So anytime you take part in the communication process, you may be anywhere along the spectrum. Let's start with the first component part. That would be the situational factors. The easiest way to conceptualize situational factors are to think of them as the rules that dictate how communication is supposed to take place. For a student, this is pretty easy. Picture you have an important presentation. Etiquette dictates that you're not going to show up in a robe and bear claw slippers because it's the wrong thing to do. An effective communicator will isolate all the situational factors necessary to make a successful communication event happen. Next, we move to the idea of the speaker. The speaker is the creator of communication. If you want to view communication as a painting, then communicators or speakers are the painters. These are the people who decide what is going to be said or expressed. Now, this process is called encoding and is affected by many factors. Things such as socioeconomic status, your cultural affiliation, and your life experiences. You pull from your individual life filter to decide what to express. What is expressed is known as a message. And think about the message as the building blocks or the meat of communication. Messages are the final product. Messages are what you put out there for other people to interpret. Remember that messages can be verbal, such as the words, or nonverbal, such as your smiles or nods. Also remember that messages can be intentional or unintentional. A good communicator will always have messages that are intentional. Otherwise, if your nonverbals do not match what you're trying to say, you're lying. This is a bad thing. Next, we move to a really hot area in communication, and that's the channel. Why is that? Because technology is changing at a very rapid pace. How we communicate with individuals is changing by the day. Are you talking to someone face-to-face? Are you texting? Are you on a cell phone? All of these things will dictate the rules of communication. You're going to see tons of changes in how communication is looked at over the next few years as we attempt to understand how communication affects how we communicate. Very hot topic. Next, we have the most important component if you are a communicator, and that's the listener. The people who you're trying to get a message expressed to. These individuals will use their life filter, and this is called decoding. They'll use their life experience, their cultural affiliation, their socioeconomic status to figure out just what you mean. As a communicator, your job is to understand your listeners and give them the basis that they need to figure out just what you're trying to say. Another tool for an effective communicator is feedback. How do people react to the communication expression that you're giving them? Are they very positive? Are they giving you positive verbal messages like I understand? Or are they giving you blank nonverbals like they don't understand? The strong communicator reads these reactions, which is all feedback is, and then alters their message in order to get a better level of understanding. Unfortunately, though, in an attempt to understanding, you are going to have to deal with interference. And interference can come along any level. It can be a speaker being a little bit sucked out because they've had too much rock star. It could be a listener being a little too down because they've had too much cold medicine. The bottom line is that interference can happen along any part of the communication process. And as an effective communicator, what you try to do is shut down as much of that as you can and always be willing to rephrase. I hope that by looking at the individual component parts today that we have a better understanding of what communication is and that we become better communication people ourselves.